On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Pentagram by Gorgoroth, and also why talking about black metal is hard. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal, and we like to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And we like for the metal we talk about to be fun to talk about.
Yeah, we like to enjoy the stuff we like.
And to know that the people who made the stuff that we liked weren't total pieces of shit.
Right, which is a problem. It's a hurdle in January for us.
Yeah, when we get to this time of year, it's difficult to find bands that don't have some real problematic shit either in their past or their much more recent past. Mm-hmm. We were going to talk about a Finnish band called Moonsorrow, and I was reading up on them yesterday before you got here, and I was like, they seem to have some problematic ties to some
problematic people.
Yeah, some very outwardly problematic people. We can talk in a little bit more detail about that.
Mm-hmm. These guys are this band is problematic in a different way.
Yeah, Gorgoroth is. I feel like if you look hard enough, I'm sure people in Gorgoroth have had ties to. Yeah, the more sort of fascist angle of black metal at some point, probably. Mm-hmm. But like as a band, a lot of the controversy around Gorgoroth has revolved around the things like having real decapitated goats' heads on stage, right, and that sort of
fun
thing.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, like leaning really hard into the Satanism angle, which is most of what I had heard about them throughout, like, my understanding of Gorgoroth. But founding guitarist and only remaining founding member Infernus also has some rather unsavory stuff in his legal past that we'll get to talking about, I suppose.
Later,
yeah. Like we at some point we can't keep delaying, but until we find a podcast until we find a podcast,
we're gonna switch.
And yeah, we're gonna become a podcast review podcast, which I'm sure those exist, but yeah, like at the very least, Gorgoroth and this album being their debut album, like they're kind of like a Mayhem, they're kind of like a Burzum, where like you can acknowledge the shittiness and still talk about the music as a piece of history, a bit as a piece of genre history, and, right, and feel maybe a little bit less like you are talking up, Gorgoroth still tours,
right? Been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah, so it's not quite the same as, I guess, Mayhem does perform, don't they?
Do they?
Yeah, they have performed some stuff here.
Who's in the band?
I think Attila actually is back
really?
Or has been back recently performing with them. I don't know who else is in. Hellhammer might be.
Maybe drummer.
Yeah. I don't know who else is there, because
I feel like there was some sort of tension between the bass player and guitarist at some point.
There may have been some tension. You know, it's a shame that their first vocalist couldn't show up.
Where is he and what is his name at the same time?
Well, I think you could do a pretty good impression.
Yeah. There it is. I did it. All right.
He did the thing.
Says his name was Dead.
Yeah. And he's
dead. Right, yeah.
But yeah, it feels it's one of those things where it feels a little bit, because of the age of this album and because of the higher profile nature of Gorgoroth, it feels a little less icky to talk about them than when it comes to the stuff with Moon Sorrow. But I do think it's also important to talk about the shitty stuff that has happened, and to acknowledge that, like these a lot of these guys don't seem to be good people,
right?
Like
unsavory.
Like Gall was not on this album, but
no.
Gall seems okay. He seems like he's maybe a bit of a dick.
Yeah, and kind of odd.
And not particularly concerned with sort of fitting a left-leaning image, I guess. Like, he is openly gay.
Yeah.
But not that makes you immediately a good or politically savory person.
Right.
But, I feel like just existing as an openly gay musician in the Norwegian black metal community, that can't be particularly easy.
Right.
But I don't know. It's always like every once in a while it happens, I feel like it happens like, God, if you're talking about like hip hop,
sure.
4 times a month, every month, and talking about different artists and whatnot, like you're gonna have trouble there too.
Sure, I mean, really any genre of music.
But yeah, it's like, there's always gonna. I'll never forget when we talked about Manowar.
Yeah.
And minutes after we were done recording, we found out that day one of the members of Manowar had been arrested on it was like child pornography
something
related
like that,
charges,
yeah.
something like that.
Right.
It's like, oh Jesus. And so I put a little disclaimer.
Yeah.
The start of that episode, but yeah, we'll talk more about Gorgoroth and black metal and the political unpleasantness that oftentimes arises, political or criminal unpleasantness in the case of Gorgoroth, or more specifically Infernus, the guitarist, but
and founding member.
Yeah. But how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm tired because I had guests last night.
Yes.
And the prior night I had guests as well.
You've been busy and social.
It's not those. I don't like either of those things.
Neither do I.
Yeah, but I do like that my oldest daughter was here with her husband.
Yeah.
We went to dinner and shot pool.
Why did you shoot the pool? What'd the water do to you?
You know what it did.
But Tess.
And then last night I had visitors from out of town stay at the house. And I looked at the clock at one point, and I'm like, it is 2 a.m.
Oh, Jesus.
I gotta go to bed.
Yeah, that's...
So, tonight.
And then I made you pick me up at the truck stop this morning.
That's fine.
I
mean,
what are you doing tonight?
Anyway.
What are you doing tonight before we talk about my escapades today?
I'm going to bed.
That's
what I'm doing tonight.
That's what you're doing tonight, is you're going to bed on time.
Going to bed on time.
That sounds like a good plan.
It is.
As I alluded to, I made you pick me up this morning at the truck stop because I've had one leaky tire for a couple of years at this point. But it's the whatever leak it has was subtle enough to where it was pretty manageable. Like I take it to the filling station to fill up on air. Like once a month during the winter, especially. Like the leak got a lot worse during the winter usually.
Well, yeah, they start to wilt if you leave them outside like that.
But more recently, my passenger side tire in the front there seemingly developed a much worse leak. Twice this winter, I have neglected to drive my car all that much, and then gotten into it only to find, my front passenger side tire is effectively flat.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? These tires are they're like 8 years old at least.
Wow.
So I might as well go get them replaced. If it weren't for the leaks, I probably could have kept them because I don't drive a whole lot compared to the typical person working a 40-hour week.
Right.
Effectively office
Just
job.
drive to church on Sunday. That's it.
Drive to church every week on Sunday. But no, I walk to work most days when weather permitting. Now, before I moved, I walked to work every day no matter what because it was so close. It didn't fucking matter how cold it was.
Right, it was silly to drive.
Yeah. So yeah, like I didn't replace my back tires. I got my tires replaced. I don't know if I straight up said that yet in the course of telling this story. I put some new tires on, which is something I've never done myself.
Yeah.
Because I've had these tires for so long, and the last time I got my tires replaced, I wasn't the one who handled that. I was in college and didn't have a whole lot of money, so my dad did that. I was with, but like that's something that I didn't personally have to take care of. So I went and did that right away this morning, and then walked over to the truck stop nearby because it was like, I thought, it was going to take a little bit, as far as like, okay, we'll get you got to sign this, what tires do you want? Here, look at these. Like I knew what tires I wanted because I'd gotten a quote on them from that place yesterday.
Right.
So because I knew what tires I wanted to have put on, the whole thing took like 3 minutes. I gave them my keys, and I was like, well, I've got a half an hour before work, so I might as well go get some breakfast.
Right.
Because the truck stop's right there, and they've got great breakfast food and shit, so
truck stop food is awesome.
Yeah, I went by and got some breakfast, and then sat waiting for you. And then you ordered breakfast.
Yeah.
But you ordered ahead, so you just had to walk in and get it.
Got a Western omelet.
Yeah. But, so that was the whole thing, and then you dropped me back off at the end of the day.
Right.
That was a new experience for me, and I took care of it all by myself. I'm a real adult.
Who's a big boy?
I'm
Oh, yeah.
I don't like that.
I heard it too.
But no, I suppose I'm happy with it. I don't know. They weren't very expensive. I got some Cooper tires, and they were just under $130 a piece. And I only did the front two tires because I have had no issues with the back two. And I'm not a great judge of it, but it feels like the tread is okay. I don't know. Again, because I don't drive very much, so
you didn't have like a dime on you?
No.
To check the tread?
I that's one of those tricks that I don't know about.
Okay. All right.
What's the idea? Is the tread supposed to
come up to a certain point on the dime?
Oh, do you know what point on the dime?
Not off the top of my head.
Who's on the dime? What president's head is that?
Is it Dwight D. Eisenhower?
I think it is. I think it is Eisenhower. It might be Truman.
I don't know.
I think it. I don't know. But anyway,
we digress.
Whoever's head is on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I figured if the back tires need to be replaced, I'll just go and get those replaced at a different time. And this way it was cheaper. I got the ones that needed to be replaced. I guess theoretically I could have had them fixed, but I feel like you never know how good the quality of that patch is going to actually be. And so I
just replace them.
Just they're old. Get them replaced.
Yeah.
Get something put on there that's under warranty, so if they develop a leak in the next however many, thousands of miles or years, you just take them in.
Anything you've had for more than 8 years, get rid of it and replace it entirely.
Yep. Always.
Like all of my children.
Yep.
They're all over 8.
Yep. You've gotten new ones. But yeah, it was a new experience for me, something I haven't had to do. Speaking of new things, I finally took a plunge that's been about a decade in the making.
Yeah.
And it's sitting in a box over by you.
Yeah.
I finally purchased a box of miniatures from Games Workshop. I bought a box of Space Marines that I will be assembling at probably this weekend, I hope. I have the paint, or not the paint. I have the glue that everyone seems to recommend you use for it, but it's also pretty old at this point, that glue. So I don't know if I should go get a new little bottle of it, but I don't have any paint yet. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do about painting, because the big hurdle seems to be priming,
right?
In the sense that, like most people, like generally the quickest and easiest way, quote unquote easiest, is to use like a spray can primer. But the quality of those, anything that you're going to do with a spray can primer is extremely dependent on the weather. Largely because you can't. It's highly recommended that you do not use spray can primers indoors.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So you're supposed to go outside, but depending upon the weather, it can fuck with the quality of the prime in so many different ways. It can end up coming out lumpy, or the primer layer can get cracked. Like there's all kinds of different effects that the humidity and the temperature can have on how the priming layer ends up looking that can fuck with the overall quality of the Mini. So I'm thinking about maybe investing in like a mid-level airbrush instead.
There you go.
Because those you can use inside. They do still recommend wearing like in it like at least like an N95 or something.
Right.
So I might do that instead, but airbrushes are not cheap. Like mid-range ones are like $70-$80.
Ooh, wow.
But part of the idea also is like if I continue in this hobby, in the long run, airbrushes save you money.
Yeah.
Because like if you just buy like spray cans every time you need primer and that sort of thing, it ends up costing more. Whereas once you have an airbrush, as long as you keep the airbrush itself clean, you just have to buy more little bottles of airbrush paint. And that's apparently way cheaper. But
so maybe get yourself some turpentine or something.
Turpentine? For what?
To like soak the point of contact with the paint. What I'm saying? So that it comes off and stays clean.
On the airbrush?
Yeah.
Or I don't know if turpentine is recommended for that. I
or to drink afterwards.
I don't think I would do that.
Okay.
But yeah, there I'm sure there are other ways to clean airbrushes. I haven't done a whole lot of research, but I don't think they recommend turpentine typically.
All right. I've never used an airbrush.
Yeah. You seemed very confident.
Yeah, no, I've never
confidently wrong.
I don't even know how they operate.
Well, you see, you've got some liquid paint, and then you have some air that goes through a hose, and then you put the liquid paint in front of the hose, and it sprays.
The paint?
The paint sprays, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It sprays the paint out.
And it can spray onto things?
Yeah. You know how you would use it? So you know a brush, right?
Sure.
Imagine a brush made of air.
What kind of bristles does it have?
Air ones.
Air ones?
Yeah.
How do they make those?
With oxygen and mostly nitrogen.
Sure. Sounds dangerous.
And actually, no.
No?
I mean, the oxygen part, yes. The nitrogen part, perfectly fine.
So basically, you're shooting nitrous oxide.
Well, there's also carbon dioxide in there as well. And trace amounts of methane, ozone.
And in your apartment, there's a lot more methane than other places.
Well, since you walked in. But yeah, we'll see how all that ends up going along.
I was also going to mention I found out this out at a supermarket.
A supermarket?
I was at the supermarket, and I looked behind me, and it's someone I knew from high school, and she says, "Are you looking forward to the wedding?" I went, "Oh."
Who's getting married?
My daughter.
Which one? One of the twins?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, congratulations to them, I guess.
Mean, on one hand, I'm like, hey, I'm happy. Yay. True love. On the other hand, why didn't you fucking tell me?
Yeah. Well, that's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough, buddy.
Yeah, I know.
That is also finding anything out at the supermarket is always a weird time and place to learn about things.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of learning about things, I was just got back from lunch, sat down, looked at my phone, and you heard me go, "No!"
Yeah. What was that? Oh, right. Yeah.
Because I found out David Lynch died.
That's sad.
I was like genuinely low-level upset all afternoon because because David Lynch died. Like, I love David Lynch. I love Twin Peaks. I liked his weather reports, like
his movies.
Yeah, I also in the post where his family announced that he had passed away. They did say it's all golden sunshine and blue skies from here on out, which made me smile and also made me sad.
Also, Bob Uecker died.
I don't know. I heard that. I'm not super familiar with Bob Uecker.
He was a baseball player, not a great baseball player.
Okay.
But he was more of a fantastic baseball announcer.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, he was also in movies and stuff.
All right.
And he sold beer. He was quite the character.
All right. Okay.
And someone else died, too. British comedic actor.
I think I saw. I don't remember who that was though.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's not. It hasn't been said exactly how David Lynch died, but he was diagnosed earlier this year with, or at least he announced that he had been diagnosed with chronic emphysema. From a lifetime. He started smoking when he was 8. Like. He was 78 years old, which, like, it's not like he died when he was in his mid-40s or something like that. But still, it's like, just quit smoking. Quit smoking. But yeah, that made me sad.
Right.
David Lynch was an absolute treasure, a treasure of a human being, delightfully weird and wonderful.
Somebody showed a clip on the inner tubes today of him being. He was in a movie. He had a brief scene in a movie. He was talking about the horizon on a painting.
Oh yeah, that was in The Fabelmans, which is a fictionalized account of Steven Spielberg's adolescence.
Sure.
And a retelling of a real event where a young Steven Spielberg met the director John Ford.
And he was playing John Ford.
Yes, and David Lynch was playing John Ford. That scene is fantastic.
Yeah, it was.
That scene is great. If the horizon's at the bottom, it's interesting. If the horizon's at the top, it's interesting. If the horizon's in the middle, it's fucking boring as shit. Now get out of my office.
Get the fuck out of my office.
Oh, it's perfect. But I love when he leaves, when, the Spielberg character leaves. He just has a little giggle to himself. He's holding his cigar, walks out. It's good. But let's... time to stop smiling.
Not time to be dour,
because we're talking about black metal now. So we've alluded to the difficulties of talking about black metal.
Right.
So we were going to talk about a Finnish band called Moon Sorrow, and the story of why we didn't end up talking about Moon Sorrow, which we were going to do yesterday.
Yeah.
And then we were like, no, let's talk about a different band. And then we're going to talk about Gorgoroth, and we're still going to talk about Gorgoroth, but found out some more stuff. But so the story with Moon Sorrow is that like throughout a lot of their history as a band, they've denied, whenever asked, like having any ties to sort of far right extremists, that sort of thing. And yet, in 2020, pre-COVID, a couple months before COVID, they announced that they're going on tour with this Estonian band called Loits. Loits is one of those bands that, when asked, go, we're not Nazis, we just like history. And then you look at their merch, their album art, their lyrics, all of it is about Nazis. And it's not, it's like... like their lyrics apparently are largely focused around like Estonian men who decided to fight against the Soviet Union as partisans in World War II. And the way they did that was by joining the Waffen-SS. You know, such a famously heroic group of patriots. So it's like, if you love history so much, aren't there maybe some other parts of Estonian history you could talk about that you could maybe take some more pride? Like if you want to, lean into the pagan angle, talk about like the Livonian Crusade, where like the Germans and the Poles, the Teutonic Knights, basically came in and slaughtered the last bastion of paganism in Europe in I think it was the late 1300s.
Right.
Like talk about that if you want to talk about something interesting in Estonian history. Why are you talking about the time that so many of your people joined the literal fucking Nazis? And I understand that in the Baltics and in Eastern Europe, like that World War II was complicated for them because they were caught between these two powers. And one they had hated for a long time, being the Russians and then the Soviets, and another was kind of newer, and they could you could join up and fight against the Soviets, but it's like
that's their perspective.
Yeah, that's their perspective on it at the time. But if you look back on it, I think it's fine to go, yeah, but you joined the SS and not be okay with that. So that's what that band is all about.
Right.
When people took issue with that they announced that they were going on tour, when Moonsar announced they were going on tour with this band, and people are like, hey, why are you guys going on tour with this Nazi band? Members of Moonsorrow went, we don't care, sorry. Sometime not too long before that, someone had asked them, apparently, there's a whole Metal Sucks article about this, by the way, that goes into much more detail than I can possibly recall or get into.
Right.
So you can look that up if you're curious, listener. But they basically they had been asked, like, hey, why don't you guys, if you guys aren't Nazis, why don't you speak out against like Nazi black metal bands? And they went, why would we speak out against our friends?
Right.
And it's like, come on. So, I found that stuff out, and showed up to record, and I was like, hey, I was doing some reading, and you're like, oh yeah, let's pivot to something else and meet back up tomorrow. And then I was looking into Gorgoroth, because I was like, I know they've got maybe some,
Sure.
uncomfortable, gross stuff that they've done. Not as a band, but in Furnace.
As a person.
In 2003, I'm just going to read straight off his Wikipedia article here. Under the heading Rape Conviction. So in 2003, Infernus was accused of repeatedly raping a woman for hours with a friend at an after party in his apartment. He was initially sentenced to serve 3 years in prison in 2005, but appealed the sentence and was acquitted of rape, but convicted of gross negligent rape and sentenced to 1 year in prison. I don't understand what the difference is under Norwegian law.
Right.
But that still doesn't sound good to me.
No, they just added more words to it.
Yeah. He ended up serving 4 months in prison in the winter of 2006 and 2007 before being released on parole. So he's a piece of shit. Varg Vikernes is also a piece of shit. And we
talked about Burzum at one point.
We talked about Burzum at one point. So I feel like as long as we acknowledge that shitty people are shitty, it's easier to maybe talk about a piece of art that they have made at the very least as a part of the history of a genre.
Right.
I don't want to end up being like a hypocrite, like criticizing these bands who are like, we're just into history. Yeah. And then me going like, but it's okay for us to talk about this because it's history, you see. But yeah, I don't know. We're here. The microphones are on. So we might as well talk about it. By the way, the Moonsour album, I did listen to it. Mm-hmm. It was good.
Yeah, it's good. It's folk metal, black metal.
Yeah, it's good. It was a good fusion of things. Mm-hmm. I ended up not enjoying it as much as I wanted to,
right?
Because I had read those things before, or while I was listening to it. I was like, let's read about. Oh no, this was interesting. So Gorgoroth, Pentagram.
Right.
We're listening to Pentagram by Gorgoroth, by the way.
Yeah.
Or we have listened to
their debut album.
Their debut from 1994. Mm-hmm. And boy, this is some 90s black metal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Very 90s black metal.
Very 90s, although it is definitely not nearly as rough around the edges as like early Mayhem stuff was.
Right.
This is like the recording quality is not perfect, crisp, amazing audio, but like it's better than recorded on a $2 microphone in someone's basement. Like this is there's some more effort put into the recording of this. Mm-hmm. One thing that I thought I was going to hate and that I got used to shockingly quickly was the vocals.
Yeah.
The vocals are weird. They're not nearly as weird as like Attila's vocals, but they're weird.
It still sounds like Gollum being tortured.
Yeah, like it's definitely not the technique isn't there, shall we say. That, and I feel like throughout my life listening to metal and sort of progressively listening to older and older stuff in certain genres and that sort of thing.
Right.
One of the things that I've come up against is feeling spoiled by the quality of vocalists in my lifetime and in my era of metal music. Mm-hmm. Where like for me, starting out with like metalcore and deathcore and stuff, like it's a specific kind of vocal, but boy, there are some insanely talented vocalists who have wild, techniques that just sound absolutely crazy. And then you go back and listen to something like this, and it's like, his stage name is Hat. I'm sure it's supposed to be like hot or something. Right. I don't know what it means, but it's just spelled H-A-T, and there's no accent mark over the A. So
Hat.
Hi, my stage name's Hat.
This is our bass player, Shoe.
Here's our banjo player.
Glove?
Yeah, I was going to say glove because...
What are those hand shoes called?
What are those shoes you wear on your hands? And I'm your vocalist shirt. Which is ironic because I don't wear one. It's Matt Pike.
Yeah, I was going to say the early days of Matt Pike.
Early days?
Well...
He doesn't wear his shirt now.
Before he lost the accent.
Oh, okay.
And he was in a band that had a banjo player.
Famous Southerner Matt Pike. I actually don't know where he's from. I think he's from New York. I want to say, I think Sleep is from New York. Or from somewhere in New England.
I thought California was where they were from.
That would probably make more sense, huh?
Right.
I don't know.
Especially if you're a dude who doesn't wear a shirt.
Yeah. Shirtless dudes can be from any state. Sleep band. Where are they from? Are they from California? Yeah, they're from San Jose, California. Right. I don't know why New York was in my brain.
No.
Well, Matt Pike is technically from Michigan.
Sure.
But yeah.
It gets cold in Michigan.
It sure does get cold. You'd be hard-pressed to walk around without a shirt. You know what else is cold? Norway.
Yeah.
So Gorgoroth is from Bergen, Norway. And they got started in 1992. There was a number of like early lineup changes, which I feel like is another hallmark of Norwegian or like early 90s second wave Norwegian black metal.
Right.
Is a complete incapability of having a consistent lineup because they fucking hated each other.
Oh yeah, because they were hateful people. Also, there wasn't a lot of money in it yet.
Yeah.
So I mean, you want to commit, you got to find a way to eat,
and that's hard.
Yeah.
So eventually, this album comes out in 1994. Mm-hmm. It's been re-released a couple of times. It was remastered in 2005. There was another re-release in 2016, it looks like. This is... I don't know if this album is really considered like particularly groundbreaking, but it's definitely considered to be like a strong early entry,
right?
Or relatively early entry in the genre. I enjoyed this, I think, more than I thought I was going to based on like the first impression of it. Right. There's not too much really interesting stuff going on, but it's also not so basic that it's boring.
Right, and here's what I like to point out a lot because I'm old.
Yeah, old. This would have been fucking nuts when it came out.
Yeah, right, exactly. This is groundbreaking at the time, but so much has been made, off the shoulders of things like this.
Yeah,
that this seems, basic.
Yeah, and like Gorgoroth was also one of the first black metal bands that I knew about. I think, like. I feel like I knew about Gorgoroth before I knew about like Burzum,
right.
and like Mayhem as well. Like I don't know exactly what it is about Gorgoroth that I learned about them before I learned about any of these other bands. I don't know. Like I think it was probably my sophomore year of college I found out about Gorgoroth. I didn't really start listening to them. I think it was still pretty far outside of my wheelhouse at the time of like, oh, this is interesting. I think they had actually just come out with a new album, which might have been how I found out about them, which remains their most recent album. That would have been 2015.
Yeah, who was their singer at the time? Was it?
Was not Gall. They actually haven't had like a permanent singer since Gall left, as far as I know. I think, where the hell is their band member chart on Wikipedia? Oh, this is Infernus's page, not Gorgoroth's page.
That is one of my favorite pieces of video on the internet, by the way.
What is?
The interview with Gall.
Oh yeah, he's so flat.
He's very flat.
He's like if someone sucked all of the humor out of Michael Ackerfeld. So their most recent singer is got the stage name. I can hardly read that. I probably won't be able to pronounce it either. But let's see. Where the fuck? Why isn't he listed under vocals? Oh, current members. Aterigner. Or Stefan Todorovic is the guy's real name.
Right.
But he was the vocalist on their most recent album,
which was 10 years ago.
Yeah, which was 10 years ago at this point. I remember him having a much more like death metal style to the like not the classic sort of black metal shriek or sort of Gollum like gurgle,
right?
That one might hear on occasion or on this album, but that's their current vocalist. At the time, it was Hat. Then they, for a bit, had a vocalist called Pest. Then there was Gall for a while for like 4 albums, and then Pest came back for 1 album, and then now we got that guy.
But but that guy has 2 names.
Well, his stage name and his real name.
Right. Well, what I'm saying, yeah. But I mean, all the rest of them just had 1 name, 1 syllable, 1 name.
Oh, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, it's 1 word. I just said it slowly because I was trying to pronounce it correctly. Aterigner is, I think, the name. What's Gall's real name? Christian Eivind Espedal.
Yeah.
I feel it's funny how many like black metal musicians given name is Christian.
Yeah. Well, because that's also
that's Varg Vikernes'
real name,
birth name at least. He goes by Louis Cachet now. No one like I said, I think before we started recording, I don't think his wife calls him Louis.
No.
And nobody online ever calls him that. He's only ever Varg, the piece of shit.
You realize if he ever hears this, he's going to come here and burn your apartment down.
I'm sure. Sure he is.
Just like he did with Notre Dame. Yeah.
I love how, like, when that happened, we were both at work. It was on the TV. I think we had a moment where we looked at each other.
Yeah, we were like, we know what happened.
Was it Varg? Was it Varg?
And then instantly you went online and everybody had that same thought at the same time.
It's like, what's his commute from where he lives in France? Oh, that's kind of long. How far does he live from Paris? I think he lives somewhere in southern France.
Yeah, he's in the south of France.
In the south of France.
That's where his postcards come from.
Yep. Wish you were here. Or something Christian. Like that. We get his Christmas cards every year.
His family with their ugly sweaters in front of the holly over the fireplace. Big swastika up in the mantle.
I don't know if he is a... not to say that he doesn't own any swastikas. I'm sure he might have some. But I don't know if he identifies as a Nazi. I think he's just more of a general sort of white supremacist.
Right. And a fan.
He's a fan of their work. To be sure. But he doesn't consider himself a part of their group.
Right.
Yeah. As far as I've been able to gather, nobody from Gorgoroth has had any concrete connection to like straight up Nazi bands. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something in there though.
Right. But ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. There's there's so much cross-pollination, I feel like, with those bands in that part of the world as well, where it's like even if you don't agree with that, you will end up bumping shoulders with those people.
Right.
Like that's one of the things that happened with like Alcest.
Yeah.
Alcest. For some reason, Alcest sounds wrong to me, even though it's literally French, and that's how it should be said.
It sounds like you actually have a southern accent at that point.
Alcest. Well, like the lead vocalist for that has gotten some shit because when he was like a teenager, he was very briefly like the drummer for some French black metal band that apparently was they were like Nazis, and he was like, I didn't really know what I was getting into, and I wasn't in that band for very long, and that was a long time ago. And as far as anyone can tell, they've never done anything else in their career to suggest a continuing enthusiasm for that lifestyle. Lifestyle? Would you
call it a lifestyle?
A lifestyle.
Is there an issue of Lifestyle magazine that features that particular thing? I mean,
in current year, there might be.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. So Gorgoroth. This album slap.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, the album, it's good. The album's good.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. That's how they always get you. It's like these sketchy bands, but they make good music.
That's true.
That's how they get you. I didn't root around too much for a score. What's your favorite song?
I can't really pronounce most of the songs.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure which one is my favorite song.
I'll go with mine then. I wrote down Maneskagen's Slave.
All right.
Which
is that the second to last song? Is that?
That's the last song.
It is the last song.
It means Moon Shadow's slave is what that means.
Or does it mean Moon Sorrow's slave?
No, it does not. That would be in Finnish if it were.
Oh, right.
I think Moon Sorrow's name is a reference to maybe a Mayhem song or something. It's a reference to a song by some other band. Yeah, I found myself enjoying that one. A surprising amount of like atmosphere and an epic feeling to it that was not present on any of the other tracks.
Right.
Like there was something. There was more to it. There was something a sort of emotional hook to latch on to. That the other songs did not have. The slightest, barest hint of a melody there to sort of grab onto your heart just a little bit. So what's have you figured out what your favorite one was?
You know what? I'm so easily distracted. I have.
You were supposed to be figuring out while I was talking instead of listening to me.
Let's see. My favorite track is. Man, I don't know. You know, I still don't know. I think Ritual.
Okay.
Ritual is really good.
Yeah. So. I guess what medal do you bestow upon this album rather than the band?
Based on its merits.
Like Maz Kanata to Chewbacca.
I mean, it gets a silver.
I agree. Yeah, it gets a silver as well. Train of thought completely just derailed.
You also
exploded. Yeah, I think what I want to say is this: is that this sort of thing is important to me, right? Like I really don't like listening to music that's made by people who I find reprehensible, right? Like I'm either not capable or not willing of separating art from the artist most of the time. Like I'm not interested in doing that.
Right.
Especially in this day and age where there are so many people who are so much more bold about being absolute pieces of dog shit.
Yeah, and the information is available now too. So like when I was growing up, you didn't know if somebody was a piece of shit.
You couldn't the information of like, somebody did this at a concert, unless that ended up in a magazine or something, you wouldn't know about it. And if you didn't read that magazine, you wouldn't know about it. It's much harder to just claim ignorance or to genuinely be ignorant,
right,
about these sorts of things. And it is important to me to not give a platform to people who are awful, even if it's as small a platform as we have.
Right.
So I always try to do a little bit of due diligence, but I also often do it so late in the cycle that I'm like, well, it's kind of too late for us to switch something else. So
here we
go. But I don't know what I want to talk about next week. Hopefully it'll be by a band who's not done anything awful.
Yeah. Just stick to just murders.
Yeah, just murders. Murder's fine.
Yeah.
Does Luigi Mangione have a band? I'll talk about that. Talk about whatever music he's made. I'll find something for us to talk about. I'm thinking maybe we want to talk about something. Numenorian hasn't made anything new since the album we talked about years ago, but they have an album or a fairly long EP that came out before that maybe we'll talk about. But I want to check that out again and see if that's actually what we want to do.
I remember Numenorian.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was a good sort of atmospheric kind of black gaze album there as well.
Right.
Until next week, thank you for listening. Why don't you go ahead and subscribe to our feed on whatever podcast service you use to listen to us. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Bronze Medalist Podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
Congratulations.